Thank you, Liz. Good afternoon, everyone. Antonia and I would like to talk with you about opportunities for developing the underground, but we'd like to start first with a short introduction.
I'm Antonia Cornaro. I work for Amberg Engineering. We're a Swiss design firm in the engineering and the built environment. Swiss, but working internationally. And I'm also a founding member of Think Deep UK. I used to live in London, working as a transportation planner. And recently I co-wrote a book with Han, which is called Underground Spaces Unveiled, Planning and Creating the Cities of the Future. And we'll give you glimpses of what these opportunities are, especially when it pertains to placemaking of cities.
And my name is Han Admiraal. I'm from the Netherlands. I work as an independent consultant. And Antonia and I, apart from co-authoring the book, we're also the co-chairs of what is known as ITICUS, the ITA Committee on Underground Space. This committee's been around for about 10 years, and we work internationally on advocating the use of the subsurface or of underground spaces, as we call it.
I also quickly want to point out, if you want to grab a flyer of our book, please take one afterwards. And there is a 10% discount today from our publisher if you quote Future 10. Or is it? Build Future 10, sorry.
So when we here at the futurebuild conference, let's talk about the cities of the future and what is it we can expect of our cities.
So we as a committee work together with the United Nations, UN Habitat on future settlements, and one of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations pertains to sustainable cities and communities. And how do we as cities, and in terms of cities with the right underground space developments, contribute to this goal? Well, we need to be resilient as a city. We need to be able to absorb shocks and stresses that are induced to us by either natural or man-made disasters. That makes a city resilient.
But we also want our cities to be smart. And smart is not just connecting people to a smart grid. It also has to do with things like automated vehicles. It is the necessity of having 5G networks inside our cities. The need for storage of data close to where the data is needed, because we don't want a lot of latency on the network. So rather than storing it in huge data centers near the North Pole or whatever, you will see that the Internet of Things and our smart cities require data centers in the urban environment. And this is, we believe, also one of the things where the use of underground space can come into force.
We also believe cities must be livable. They must be enjoyable. They must be amenable to us citizens. They must be walkable. We want to basically move about our cities feeling comfortable. And we believe the underground space can contribute to that, and we will show examples of that.
And finally, we want our cities also to be sustainable, to develop in a sustainable manner, and to be there for future generations. But above all, what we want from our cities is that they are inclusive, that they are cities that everyone can enjoy.
Here, for instance, we have an example of an inner city park in Chicago. It's called the Millennium Park, and what you can see is in the middle of downtown Chicago, in the middle of the high-risers, there's a beautiful space that's accessible, that's amenable, that is, people can sit down, play in the water, have fun, and have a respite from everyday hustle-bustle of the city.
But when we say that our cities need to be inclusive cities and they need to be there for everyone to be enjoyed, we also need to address those issues that are concerned with what William White called the undesirables. And he said famously, they are themselves not too much of a problem. It's the actions taken to combat them that is the problem. And he propagated that if we want a city for all, we need cities with public spaces, with open spaces for everyone to enjoy. So let's explore that subject for a little bit, public spaces.
Here, for instance, we have a privately owned public space. This is an example from New York City, downtown Manhattan, the Zuccotti Park. And this is a very successful example. This is one that's very accessible to everyone walking by there. There's tons of benches, places to sit in the shade, enjoy the trees, enjoy the flowers. There's play areas, there's nice lighting aspects. It's clean, it's safe, it's a pleasant space. And that's something that's not always the case with privately owned public spaces, who are often just exploited as a means to have a bigger blueprint on their building surface.
But what do you do when you run out of public space, or when your density in the city becomes so high that you really can't afford to have public spaces? Well, in San Francisco they solved this by creating privately owned public open spaces. Just watch this video for about 2 minutes.
If you've ever been downtown and seen construction in a strange new area, chances are you're seeing the site of a new privately owned public open space. These beautiful, often hidden parks are scattered throughout the city's downtown area and are the result of a 1985 ruling that forces large buildings to donate 1% of their project's total cost to public art and open spaces for the public and their workers. Due to this initiative, known as the 1% Art Initiative, the larger the building, the bigger or more beautiful the open space. And because they're privately owned at the end of the day, their entrances are often kept just out of public view and must be discovered or heard about by word of mouth. Some San Francisco locals, like myself, take it as a challenge to discover San Francisco's more than 60 popos for the purpose of relaxing or just doing homework.
I like to come to these secret spots around the city. These parks are really nice to come and do homework because I have a lot of time in between classes, so it's really cool to just sit here and chill and get my homework done.
Due to their exclusivity, these tucked-away places are often the first choice for San Franciscans who need to get away from the droning of a city lifestyle. They also serve as a great place to take visitors if you really want to blow them away. Picking one at random will give you anything from the wonderfully bizarre to the adorably calm. And the funny thing is, the best of these parks often lay just outside of our daily commute.
This area above the Crocker Galleria is probably one of the city's best-known privately owned public open spaces. It spans 25,000 square feet, connects 3 adjacent buildings, and offers a stunning view of Market Street below.
So if you're looking for a new place to eat your lunch, or a place to nap after a long day, or a beautiful place to take your visiting relatives, keep an eye out for a popo just outside of view. From downtown San Francisco, I'm Casey Franco with the Academy of Art University's K-Art News.
So how does that work for underground spaces, you may well ask?
This is, for instance, an example of the COEX Mall in Seoul, South Korea, which is an integrated shopping mall with the underground metro system, but it also offers a large public library accessible to all. However, of course, the opening hours are coupled to the operation times of the metro system.
This is the Suraya shopping mall in Kuala Lumpur. For the larger part, it is underground. It connects the public transport system, the underground system, with the exhibition center, and it's a huge place to be. You can pass through it, but only during opening hours. But what is even worse, there's a little sign at the entrance where the security guards stand, and it says that the management has the right to refuse you entrance to this basically privately owned space.
Or picture this very beautiful example of an interior underground public space, Place des Jardins in Montreal, in the Ville Souterraine, or underground city of Montreal, which is a large connected 32-kilometer long network of underground passages, galleries, shopping, metro, other facilities. And people gather here, people enjoy it, but it's again closed at night times or when the metro is no longer in operation. Or this one, Paris Léal, the former marketplace of Paris that was converted into a major transport hub in the middle of Paris. It connects to the RER, to the metro. It has shopping. And they revamped it because it was monumentalistic. Sorry, what was it? Was the 1970s
Brutalism.
brutalist architecture. Sorry, I forgot the term. And it was no longer an amenable place. It was actually it was quite a eyesore for one, but also unsafe. And they revamped the whole area. There's beautiful public park space now on top, and pedestrian areas. And they also created a huge canopy in housing the whole opening into the underground, making sort of an architectural statement, but opening it in a way that it makes it look very inviting and accessible. However, again here, the opening hours are coupled to the metro operating hours.
So what we observe is that when we talk about underground spaces, these are often either extensions of buildings into the subsurface, creating basements. They can be part of linear networks because we create our underground systems and underground stations. But the access is always limited to those who have a right to be there, those who have actually bought a ticket, or the access is dependent on operating hours. So these spaces are not actually integrated into the urban fabric in terms of open spaces. So the question is, how do we actually create and design inclusive underground spaces?
This is, in our mind, a very good example of a very successful one that's not limited to any operating hours. It's a sunken plaza at -1 in Rotterdam. And it's a linear corridor, and it recreates very amenable elements of street architecture and street furniture from ground level, brings it to level -1, like trees and benches and water features, and people can meander through there night and day.
Here you can see an aerial view of the way it meanders. It actually connects to shopping areas on either side of a main street. It passes under the main street, but it also gives access to a underground station which is located there, which in the past nobody was able to find. But what is more important, the way it's designed, is that even if the metro is not operating or even if the shops are closed, people can still pass through it as a true street. They can still use it as a street. They can be there to sit around or enjoy the water feature or whatever. But it's the design that makes it an open space, and it provides, it becomes part of the city fabric in that way. So in conclusion,
so in our mind, inclusiveness of public spaces applies as much to underground spaces as much as it does to surface spaces. And connectivity is key to creating like new urban tissue below the street so that it really functions like a street on the surface. And the planning and design needs to be integrated into the whole concept from the start. And we at Think Deep UK proclaim that very much, that we also work on this subject in a very cross-disciplinary way with geologists involved and architects and designers, engineers, planners. They put their thinking cap together and make this a successful space, a connected one, interconnected also with the surface.
and for us, inclusive underground spaces are there for all to enjoy, and they should enhance the urban fabric. Thank you very much.